Chapter 16. Light. The world is largely known through the senses. The sense of sight is one of the most important senses. Through it, we see the mountains, rivers, trees, plants, chairs, people, and so many other things around us. We also see clouds, rainbows, and birds flying in the sky. At night, we see the moon and the stars. You are able to see the words and sentences printed on this page. How is seeing made possible? What makes things visible? Have you ever thought how we see various objects? You may say that I see the objects, but can you see an object in the dark? It means that eyes alone cannot see any object. It is only when light from an object enters our eyes that we see the object. The light may have been emitted by the object or may have been reflected by it. You learnt in class 7 that a polished or shiny surface can act as a mirror. A mirror changes the direction of light that falls on it. Can you tell in which direction the light falling on a surface will be reflected? Activity. Fix a white sheet of paper on a drawing board or a table. Take Take a comb and close all its openings except one in middle. You can use a strip of black paper for this purpose. Hold the comb perpendicular to the sheet of paper. Throw light from a torch through the opening of the comb from one side. With slight adjustment of the torch and the comb, you will see a ray of light along the paper on the other side of the comb. Keep the comb and the torch steady. Place a strip of plain paper in the path of the light ray. What do you observe? After striking the mirror, the ray of light is reflected in another direction. The light ray which strikes any surface is called the incident ray. The ray that comes back from the surface after reflection is known as the reflected ray. A ray of light is an idealization. In reality, we have a narrow beam of light which is made up of several rays. For simplicity, we use the term ray for a narrow beam of light. Draw lines showing the position of a plane mirror, the incident ray and the reflected ray on the paper with the help of your friends. Remove the mirror and the comb. Draw a line making an angle of 90° to the line representing the mirror at the point where the incident ray strikes the mirror. This line is known as the normal to the reflecting surface at that point. The angle between the normal and the incident ray is called as angle of incidence. The angle between the normal and the reflected ray is known as the angle of reflection. Measure the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection. Repeat the activity several times by changing the angle of incidence. Do you see any relation between the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection? Are they approximately equal? If the experiment is carried out carefully, it is seen that the angle of incidence is always equal to the angle of reflection. This is known as the law of reflection. Let us perform another activity. Perform activity again. This time use a sheet of stiff paper or a chart paper. Let the sheet project a little beyond the edge of the table. Cut the projecting portion of the sheet in the middle. Look at the reflected ray. Make sure that the reflected ray extends to the projected portion of the paper. Bend that part of the projected portion on which the reflected ray falls. Can you still see the reflected ray? Bring the paper back to the original position. Can you see the reflected ray again? What do you infer? When the whole sheet of paper is spread on the table, it represents one plane. The incident ray, the normal at the point of incidence, and the reflected ray are all in this plane. When you bend the paper, you create a plane different from the plane in which the incident ray and the normal lie. Then you do not see the reflected ray. What does it indicate? It indicates that the incident ray, the normal at the point of incidence, and the reflected ray all lie in the same plane. This is another law of reflection. Activity. A source of light O is placed in front of a plane mirror PQ. Two rays OA and OC are incident on it. Can you find out the direction of the reflected rays? Draw normals to the surface of the mirror PQ at the points A and C. Then draw the reflected rays at the points A and C. How would you draw these rays? Call the reflected rays AB and CD respectively. Extend them further. Do they meet? Extend them backwards. Do they meet now? If they meet, mark this point as 1. For a viewer's eye at E, do the reflected rays appear to come from the point I? Since the reflected rays do not actually meet at I, but only appear to do so, we say that a virtual image of the point O is formed at I. As you have learnt already in class 8, such an image cannot be obtained on a screen. You may recall that in an image formed by a mirror, the left of the object appears on the right and the right appears on the left. This is known as lateral inversion. Regular and diffused reflection. Activity. Imagine that parallel rays are incident on an irregular surface as shown. Remember that the laws of reflection are valid at each point of the surface. Use these laws to construct reflected rays at various points. Are they parallel to one another? You will find that these rays are reflected in different directions. When all the parallel rays reflected from a plane surface are not parallel, the reflection is known as diffused or irregular reflection. Remember that the diffused reflection is not due to the failure of the laws of reflection. It is caused by the irregularities in the reflecting surface, like that of a cardboard. On the other hand, reflection from a smoother surface, like that of a mirror, is called regular reflection. Images are formed by regular reflection. Do we see all objects due to reflected light? Nearly everything you see around is seen due to reflected light. Moon, for example, receives light from the sun and reflects it. That's how we see the moon. The objects which shine in the light of the other objects are called illuminated objects. Can you name some other such objects? There are other objects which give their own light, such as the sun, fire, flame of a candle, and an electric lamp. The light falls on our eyes. That is how we see them. The objects which emit their own light are known as luminous objects. Reflected light can be reflected again. Recall the last time you visited a hairdresser. He or she makes you sit in front of a mirror. After your haircut is complete, he or she holds a mirror behind you to show you how the hair has been cut. Do you know how you could see the hair at the back of your head? The periscope makes you use of two plane mirrors. Can you explain how reflection from the two mirrors enables you to see objects which are not visible directly? Periscopes are used in submarines, tanks, and also by soldiers in bunkers to see things outside. Multiple images. You are aware that a plane mirror forms only a single image of an object. What happens if two plane mirrors are used in combination? Let us see. Activity. Take two plane mirrors, set them at right angles to each other with their edges touching. To hinge them, you can use adhesive tape. Place a coin in between the mirrors. How many images of the coin can you see? Now hinge the mirrors using the adhesive tape at different angles, say 45, 60, 120, 180. Place some object, say a candle, in between them. Note down the number of images of the object in each case. Finally, set the two mirrors parallel to each other. Find out how many images of a candle placed between them is seen. Can you now explain how you can see the back of your head at the hair dresses shop. This idea of number of images formed by mirrors placed at an angle to one another is used in kaleidoscope to make numerous beautiful patterns. You can also make a kaleidoscope yourself. Activity. To make a kaleidoscope, get three rectangular mirror strips, each about 15 cm long and 4 cm wide. Join them together to form a prism as shown. Fix them in a circular cardboard tube or tube of a thick chart paper. Make sure that the tube is slightly longer than the mirror strips. Close one end of the tube by a cardboard disc having a hole in the center through which you can see. To make the disc durable, paste a piece of transparent plastic sheet under the cardboard disc. At the other end, touching the mirrors, fix a circular plain glass plate. Place on this glass plate several small pieces of colored glass. Close this end of the tube by a ground glass plate. Allow enough space for the color pieces to move around. Your kaleidoscope is ready. When you peep through the hole, you will be able to see a variety of patterns in the tube. An interesting feature of a kaleidoscope is that you will never see the same pattern again. Designers of wallpapers and fabrics and artists use kaleidoscopes to get ideas of new patterns. To make your toy attractive, you can wrap a kaleidoscope in a colored paper. Sunlight, white or colored. The sunlight is referred to as white light. You also learned that it consists of 7 colors. Here is another activity showing that sunlight consists of several colors. Get a plain mirror of a suitable size, place it in a katori as shown. Fill the bowl with water. Put this arrangement near a window in such a way that the direct sunlight falls on the mirror. Adjust the position of the bowl so that the reflected light from the mirror falls on a wall. If the wall is not white, fix a sheet of white paper on it. Reflected light will be seen to have many colors. How can you explain this? The mirror and water form a prism. As you learnt earlier, this breaks up light into its colors. Splitting of light into its colors is known as dispersion of light. Rainbow is a natural phenomenon showing dispersion. What is inside our eyes? We see things only when light coming from them enters our eyes. Eye is one of our most important sense organs. It is therefore important to understand its structure and working. The eye has a roughly spherical shape. The outer coat of the eye is white. It is tough so that it can protect the interior of the eye from accidents. Its transparent front part is called cornea. Behind the cornea we find a dark muscular structure called as iris. In the iris there is a small opening called as pupil. The size of pupil is controlled by the iris. The iris is that part of the eye which gives it its distinctive color. When we see that a person has green eyes, we refer actually to the color of the iris. The iris controls the amount of light entering into the eye. Activity. Look into your friend's eye. Observe the size of the pupil. Throw light on her eye with a torch. Observe the pupil now. Switch off the torch and observe the pupil again. Do you notice any change in the size of the pupil? In which case was the pupil larger? Why do you think it was so? In which case do you need to allow more light in the eye when the light is dim or bright? Behind the pupil of the eye is a lens which is thicker in center. What kind of lens is thicker at the center? Recall what you learnt about the lenses. The lens focuses light on the back of the eye on a layer called as retina. The retina consists several nerve cells. Sensations felt by the nerve cells are then transmitted to the brain through the optic nerve. There are two kinds of cells, cones and rods. Cones which are sensitive to bright light and rods which are sensitive to dim light. Cones sense color At the junction of the optic nerve and the retina, there are no sensory cells, so no vision is possible at that spot. This is called blind spot. Its existence can be demonstrated as follows. Activity. Make a round mark and a cross on a sheet of paper with spot to the right of the cross. The distance between two marks may be 6 to 8 centimeters. Hold the sheet of paper at the arm's length from eye. Close your left eye. Look continuously at the cross. Move the sheet slowly towards you, keeping your eye on the cross. What do you find? Does the round mark disappear at the same point? Now, close your right eye. Look at the round mark now and repeat the activity. Does the cross disappear? The disappearance of the cross or the round mark shows that there is a point on the retina which cannot send messages to the brain when light falls on it. The impression of an image does not vanish immediately from the retina. It persists there for about 1 by 16th of a second. So, if still images of a moving object are flashed on the eye at a rate faster than 16 per second, then the eye perceives this object as moving. Activity. Get a square piece of cardboard of 6 to 8 centimeter. Make two holes as shown. Thread a string through the two holes. Draw or paste a cage on one side of the cardboard and a bird on the other side. Twist the string and make the card twirl rapidly. Do you see the bird in the cage? The movies that we see are actually a number of separate pictures in proper sequence. They are made to move across the eye, usually at the rate of 24 pictures per second, which is faster than 16 per second. So we see a moving picture. Nature has provided eyes with eyelids to prevent any object from entering the eye. Eyelids also shut out light when not required. Eye is such a wonderful instrument that normally can clearly see distant objects as well as objects nearby. The minimum distance at which the eye can see objects distinctly varies with age. The most comfortable distance at which one can read with a normal eye is about 25 centimeter. Some persons can see objects close to them clearly but cannot see distant objects so clearly. On the other hand, some persons cannot see objects close by clearly but they can see distant objects quite well. With suitable corrective lenses, these defects of the eye can be corrected. Sometimes, particularly in old age, eyesight becomes foggy. It is due to the eye lens becoming cloudy. When it happens, persons are said to have cataract. There is loss of vision, sometimes extremely severe. It is possible to treat this defect. The opaque lens is removed and a new artificial lens is inserted. Modern technology has made this procedure simpler and safer. Care of the eyes. It is necessary that you take proper care of the eyes. If there is any problem, you should go to an eye specialist and have a regular checkup. If advised, use suitable spectacles. Too little or too much light is bad for eyes. Insufficient light causes eye strain and headaches. Too much light, like that of the sun, a powerful lamp or a laser torch, can injure the retina. Do not look at the sun or a powerful light directly. Never rub your eyes. If particles of dust go into your eyes, wash your eyes with clean water. If there is no improvement, go to a doctor. Wash your eyes frequently with clean water. Always read at the normal distance for vision. Do not read by bringing the book too close to your eyes or keeping it too far. You learnt about the balanced diet previously. If food is deficient in some components, eyes may also suffer. Lack of vitamin A in foodstuff is responsible for many eye troubles. Most common amongst them is the night blindness. One should therefore include in the diet components which have vitamin A. Raw carrots, broccoli, and green vegetables such as spinach and cod liver oil are rich in vitamin A. Eggs, milk, curd, cheese, butter, and fruits such as papaya and mango are also rich in vitamin A. Visually challenged persons can read and write. Some persons, including children, can be visually handicapped. They have very limited vision to see things. Some persons cannot see at all since birth. Some persons may lose their eyesight because of a disease. Such persons try to identify things by touching and listening to voices more carefully. They develop their other senses more sharply. However, additional resources can enable them to develop their capabilities further. Animals have eyes shaped in different ways. Eyes of a crab are quite small, but they enable the crab to look all around. So the crab can sense even if the enemy approaches from behind. Butterflies have large eyes that seem to be made up of thousands of little eyes. They can see not only in front and the sides but the back as well. A night bird, owl, can see very well in the night but not during the day. On the other hand, the daylight birds like kite and eagle can see well during the day but not in the night. The owl has a large cornea and a large pupil to allow more light in its eye. Also, it has on its retina a large number of rods and only a few cones. The day birds, on the other hand, have more cones and fewer rods. Resources can be of two types: non optical aids and optical aids. Non optical aids include visual aids, tactual aids using the sense of touch, auditory aids using the sense of hearing, and electronic aids. Visual aids can magnify words, can provide suitable intensity of light and material at proper distances. Tactual aids, including braille writer, slate, and stylus, help the visually challenged person in taking notes, reading, and writing. Auditory aids include cassettes, tape recorders, talking books, and other such devices. Electronic aids, such as talking calculators, are also available for performing many computational tasks. Closed circuit television, also an electronic aid, enlarges printed material with suitable contrast and illumination. Nowadays, use of audio CDs and voice boxes with computers are also very helpful for listening to and writing the desired text. Optical aids include bifocal lenses, contact lenses, tinted lenses, magnifiers, and telescopic aids. While the lens combinations are used to rectify visual limitations, telescopic aids are available to view chalkboard and class demonstrations. What is the Braille system? The most popular resource for visually challenged person is Braille. Louis Braille himself, a visually challenged person, developed a system for visually challenged persons and published it in 1821. Braille system has 63 dot patterns or characters. Each character represents a letter, a combination of letters, or a common word or a grammatical sign. Dots are arranged in cells of two vertical rows of 3 dots each. Patterns of dots to represent some English letters and some common words are shown below. These patterns, when embossed on braille sheets, help visually challenged persons to recognize words by touching to make them easier to touch. The dots are raised slightly. Visually challenged people learn the braille system by beginning with letters, then special characters and letter combinations. Methods depend upon recognition by touching. Each character has to be memorized. Braille text can be produced by hand or by machine. Typewriter like devices and printing machines have now been developed. Some visually challenged Indians have great achievements to their credit. Divakar, a child prodigy, has given amazing performances as a singer. Ravindra Jain, born completely visually challenged, obtained his Sangeet degree from Allahabad. He has shown his excellence as a lyricist, singer, and music composer. Lal Advani, himself visually challenged, established an association for special education and rehabilitation of disabled in India. Besides this, he represented India on Braille problems in UNESCO. Helen Keller, an American author and lecturer, is perhaps the most well known and inspiring visually challenged person. She lost her sight when she was only 18 months old, but because of her resolve and courage, she could complete her graduation from a university. She wrote a number of books, including The Story of My Life, 1903. Question answers. Suppose you are in a dark room. Can you see objects in the room? Can you see objects outside the room? Answer. If a person is inside a room where there is no light, it is then impossible to see the object inside the room. But the object outside the room can be seen easily. When light falls on the eyes after reflecting from the object, it becomes visible. If the room is dark, then the object which is in the room reflects no light. Hence, the person is not able to see the object in the room where there is no light. Differentiate between regular and diffused reflection. Does diffused reflection mean the failure of the laws of reflection? Answer. Regular reflection occurs when the surface is smooth. Diffused reflection occurs when the surface is rough. Regular reflection has a reflected rays move in a particular direction. Diffused reflection has reflected rays scatter in random directions. Example of regular reflection is reflection by plane mirror, and example of diffused reflection is reflection by road surface. The laws of reflection have not failed because each ray obeys the law of reflection. All the reflected rays are parallel to each other, whereas in diffused reflection, the rays are not parallel to the incident rays. Mention against each of the following whether regular or diffuse reflection will take place when a beam of light strikes. Justify the answer. Number 1. Polished wooden table. Answer. The wooden table that has a polished surface has regular reflection. A surface that has been recently polished can be good example of a smooth surface. The polished wooden table has a smooth surface. Second, chalk powder. White chalk powder that is used in school, diffused reflection. Chalk powder spread on a surface is an example of an irregular surface because it is rough. Therefore, the diffused reflection will appear from a chalk powder. Number 3, cardboard surface. Cardboard surface has diffused reflection. The surface of the cardboard is a kind of irregular surface, hence the diffused reflection will take place from a cardboard surface. Number 4, marble floor with water spread over it. Answer. Marble floor, regular reflection. A marble floor can be a good example of a surface that is regular. Since water makes the ceramic glossy, the reflections that are regular occur on this surface. Number 5, mirror. Mirror has a regular reflection. A mirror has a very smooth surface, hence it gives a regular reflection. Number 6, piece of paper. Piece of paper has diffused reflection. Although a piece of paper may look smooth, it has many irregularities on its surface. Due to this reason, it will give a diffused reflection. State the laws of reflection. Answer. The law of reflection states that the angle of reflection and the angle of incidence are always equal to one another. The reflected ray, the incident ray, and the normal to the reflective surfaces at the point of incidence all come on the same plane. Describe an activity to show that the incident ray, the reflected ray, and the normal at the point of incidence lie in the same plane. Answer. On a table, place a plane mirror perpendicular to the plane of the table. Make a small hole in piece of paper and hold it perpendicular to the plane of the table. Try to do this experiment in a dark room. Take one more piece of paper and place it on the table so that it makes contact with the mirror. Draw a line perpendicular to the mirror on the piece of paper which is on the table. Now beam light rays with the help of a torch through the small hole such that the beam of light hits the normal at the bottom of the mirror. The ray of light will be reflected in the light rays from the hole incident on the mirror. Looking at the piece of paper on the table, we can easily show that the incident ray, the normal line, and the reflected ray at the point of incidence lie in the same plane. Fill in the blanks. A person 1 meter in front of a plane mirror seems to be dash meter away from the image. Answer. A person 1 meter in front of a plane mirror seems to be 2 meters away from his image. If you touch your dash ear with your right hand in front of a plane mirror, it will be seen in the mirror that your right ear is touched with your dash. Answer. If you touch your left ear with your right hand in front of plane mirror, it will be seen in the mirror that your right ear is touched with your left hand. The size of the pupil becomes dash when you see in dim light. Answer. The size of the pupil becomes large when you see in the dim light. Night birds have dash cones then rods in their eyes. Answer. Night birds have fewer cones than rods in their eyes. The angle of incidence is dash equal to the angle of reflection. The angle of incidence is always equal to angle of reflection. Image formed by a plane mirror is virtual, behind the mirror and of the same size as an object. Describe the construction of a kaleidoscope. Answer. The construction of a kaleidoscope is detailed as below. Take 3 rectangular mirror strips of dimensions 15 into 4 centimeters and join them together to form a prism. A prism is fixed into a circular cardboard tube. The circular cardboard tube should be slightly longer than the prism. This circular tube is now closed at one end with a cardboard disc. The disc has a hole through which we can see. At the other end of the circular tube, a plain glass plate is fixed. It is important that this glass plate touches the prism mirrors. On this glass plate, several small and broken pieces of colored glass are placed. This end is now closed by a round glass plate, allowing enough space for the colored glass pieces to move. Draw a labeled sketch of human eye. Gurmeet wanted to perform activity using a laser torch. Her teacher advised her not to do so. Can you explain the basis of teacher's advice? Answer. Gurmeet's teacher advised her not to do so because the intensity of the laser light is very high and it is harmful to the human eyes. It can cause damage to the retina and lead to blindness. Hence, it is advisable not to look at a laser beam directly. Explain how you can take care of your eyes. Answer. The following points help a person to take care of his eyes. Reading should not be done in bright light as well as in dim light. We should visit an eye specialist at regular intervals of time. If any small insect or dust particle enters the eye, do not rub but clean them immediately with cold water. We should avoid direct exposure of our eyes to sunlight. While reading, there should be a distance of at least 25 centimeters between the eyes and the book. What is the angle of incidence of a ray if the reflected ray is at an angle of 90 degree to the incident ray? Solution. If the reflected ray is at the angle of 90 degree to the incident ray, the angle of incidence is 45 degree. According to the law of reflection, the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection are equal. Therefore, both the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection are 90 by 2, 45. How many images of a candle will be formed if it is placed between two parallel mirrors separated by 40 centimeters distance? Answer. If a candle is placed between two parallel plane mirrors separated by 40 centimeter distance, then multiple and infinite images will be formed due to the multiple reflections between the mirrors. Infinite numbers of images are formed when two mirrors are placed parallel to each other. Two mirrors meet at right angles. A ray of light is incident on one at an angle of 30 degree. Draw the reflected ray from the second mirror. Answer. The first law of reflection is used to obtain the path of reflected light. It can be observed that the given ray of light will reflect from the second mirror at an angle of 60 degree. The incident ray OA reflects at point O. Since angle of reflection is angle of incidence, OO makes an angle of 30 degree with the normal of the first mirror. Now drawing normal at O, the two normals intersect at 90 degree angle, and applying angle sum property to triangle OXO dash, we get the angle of incidence in second mirror 60 degree. Applying the law of reflection in second mirror, we get the figure. Bujo stands at just on the side of a plane mirror as shown. Can he see himself in the mirror? Also, can he see the image of objects situated at P, Q and R? Answer. Bujo cannot see his image because the reflected ray won't reach his eyes. He can see the image of objects situated at P and Q because the rays coming from P and Q get reflected by the mirror and reach his eyes. Bujo can't see the image of object situated at R because the ray from object R does not get reflected. Find out the position of the image of an object situated at A in the plane mirror. Can Paheli at B see this image? Can Bujo at C see this image? When Paheli moves from B to C, where does the image of A move? Image of the object placed at A formed behind the mirror. The distance of the image from the mirror is equal to the distance of A from the mirror. Paheli at B can see this image. Bujo at C can see this image. Image of the object at A will not move. It will remain in the same position when Paheli moves from B to C. Define dispersion of light. Answer. Splitting up of white light into 7 colors when it passes through a glass prism is known as dispersion of light. Name the colors in the order they appear in the spectrum of light. Answer. Vibgyor. Violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. Angle of incidence is equal to angle of reflection. Always. Image formed by a plane mirror is virtual behind the mirror and of the same size as the object. What is the angle of incidence of a ray if reflected ray is at an angle of 90 degree to the incident ray? The angle of incidence is 45 degree. What are the two factors responsible for object to be seen? Answer. To be seen as an object, the sense of vision and light are required. What is meant by normal? Answer. The perpendicular drawn at the point of incidence is known as normal. Define the angle of incidence. Answer. The angle between the incident ray and the normal is known as angle of incidence. What name is given to the angle between the normal and the reflected ray? Answer. Angle of reflection. What is meant by lateral inversion? Answer. Lateral inversion is the phenomenon of the interchange of the left and right sides between the object and its image. When the reflected rays are parallel, what type of reflection is taking place? Answer. It is regular reflection. In irregular reflection, are the reflected rays parallel or not? Answer. In irregular reflection, the reflected rays are not parallel. What are illuminated objects? Answer. Objects which reflect the light falling on them and can be seen are known as illuminated objects. What is white light? Answer. Sunlight is a mixture of 7 colors, also known as white light. Give one example of natural dispersion. Answer. Formation of rainbow. What is function of iris? Answer. Iris controls the amount of light entering into the eyes. What is meant by visually challenged people? Answer. Visually challenged people have limited vision to see things. What are non-optical aids? Answer. Non-optical aids include visual aids, tactile aids, auditory aids, and electronic aids. What are tactile aids? Tactile aids include braille writers, slate, and stylus. They help the visually challenged persons in taking notes, reading and writing, and in learning mathematics. Fill in the blanks. The angle of reflection is dash to the angle of incidence. Answer. The angle of reflection is equal to the angle of incidence. The image formed by a plane mirror is dash inverted with respect to the object. Answer. The image formed by a plane mirror is laterally inverted with respect to the object. The dash uses two plane mirror strips, each of which is kept inclined at 45 degree to the axis of the tube. Answer. The periscope uses two plane mirror strips, each of which is kept inclined at 45 degree to the axis of the tube. Write one or two word answer for each of the following. The ray of light that bounces back from a plane mirror is reflected ray. The nature of the image formed by a plane mirror is virtual image. The number of images formed by a pair of parallel plane mirrors is multiple images. The devices that is often used as looking glass is mirror. Which kind of spherical mirrors are used in vehicles and why? Answer. The convex mirror is used in vehicles because it gives the driver a large field of view. Why it is important to take care of our eyes? Mention any two activities that you may cause damage to eyes. Answer. Eyes are the most wonderful gift of nature to us and they must serve as us for whole life. Our eyes can be damaged by playing carelessly or by hurting them with sharp objects. Suppose you are in a dark room. Can you see objects in the room? Can you see objects outside the room? Answer. The objects cannot be seen inside the room because there is no light. The objects outside the room can be seen if there is light outside. Distinguish between real and virtual image. Real image, the rays actually meet at a point. Virtual image, the rays do not meet at a point. In real image, the image can be obtained on a screen. In virtual image, the image cannot be obtained on a screen. What is the function of eyelids? Eyelids prevent objects from entering the eye. They also shut out light when not required. Give some uses of plane mirror. Answer. Plane mirrors are used for dressing up, shaving beards, in scientific meters and for designing periscope. How many plane mirror strips do we use in kaleidoscope? At what angle are they inclined with respect to each other? The kaleidoscope uses a set of three equal sized plane mirror strips. The three strips are inclined to each other at an angle of 60 degree. What do we say Why do we say that the image formed in a plane mirror is virtual? Answer. The image formed in a plane mirror cannot be obtained on a screen, so we say it is a virtual image. What would you do to see if the barber has cut your hair properly at the back? Answer. I would keep another mirror parallel to the main mirror in a vertical position. How many images are formed when two mirrors are placed edge to edge? Answer. At right angles to each other at an angle of 60 degree to each other. Three images will be formed when the mirror is held at right angles to each other, and five images are formed when the mirror is held at an angle of 60 degree to each other. How are multiple images formed? Name a device based on this principle. Answer. When three rectangular strips of a plain paper are kept edge to edge at an angle of 60 degree to each other, multiple images are formed. Kaleidoscope is based on this principle. What is color blindness? Give reasons for it. Answer. Some people cannot distinguish between the different colors. This is known as the color blindness. Color blindness is due to the absence of cones on the nerve endings of the retina. What is nictitating membrane? In which animal it is found? Answer. Nictitating membrane is a transparent membrane over eyes to protect the eye from water. Fish and frogs have a nictitating membrane. What kind of eyes do the insects have? Answer. The eye in insects is a compound eye with hundreds of small units, each with a lens of its own. The image seen by an insect is blurred picture. Why should children take milk and eat carrots? Answer. Milk, carrots and yellow fruits are rich in vitamin A, which is very essential for the eyes to maintain good vision. How is night blindness caused? Answer. Night blindness is caused by deficiency of vitamin A and damage to the retina and rods. Distinguish between luminous and non-luminous bodies. Answer. The bodies which produce self light, they are called luminous bodies, and the bodies which do not have their own lights but have reflected lights, those are called as non-luminous bodies. Is the moon luminous body? How are we able to see the moon? Answer. The moon is non-luminous. We are able to see the moon because it reflects the sunlight falling on it. What are rods and cones? What are their functions? Answer. Cones are the nerve endings which are sensitive to color light. They help us to distinguish between colors. Rods are the nerve endings which are sensitive to bright light. In a periscope, two mirrors are arranged parallel to each other, but they do not form multiple images. Why? What is the use of periscope? Answer. In a periscope, two mirrors are placed parallel and facing each other, but are in an inclined position at an angle of 45 degree. So they do not form multiple images. Uses of periscope: in submarines to view the happening of on the surface of water, to view objects behind the wall. What is spectrum? What is the meaning of VIBGYOR? Spectrum is the band of 7 colors obtained on the screen when white light splits on passing through a prism. VIBGYOR represents the 7 colors of the spectrum, that is violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange and red. How is rainbow formed? Answer. The water droplets suspended in the air after the rain act as prisms. When the sun is towards the horizon, the inclined rays pass through the water drops to disperse into 7 colors of spectrum. Why does white light disperse when it passes through a glass prism? White light is a combination of seven colors of light. The speed of each color is different. So, while passing through the glass prism, each color deviates by different amounts. Therefore, dispersion of light into a spectrum takes place. Which part of the human eye makes a person blue eyed? Answer: iris is responsible for making the person blue eyed. What role is placed by ciliary muscles? Answer: ciliary muscles help to adjust the focal length of the lens to view all objects clearly. What is the importance of retina in the eye? Answer: the image of the object is formed on the retina of the eye. What is the difference between the eyes and the night birds and day birds? Answer: the day birds can see clearly during the day but not at night. The day birds have more cones and less rods. The cones are sensitive to bright light and can sense colors. Night birds can see clearly at night but not during the day. Their eyes have a large cornea and pupil to allow more light to pass. Also, their retina has mostly rods and few cones. Rods are more sensitive to dim light. What is cataract of the eye? Cataract is a condition in which the lens becomes milky. Light does not pass through such a lens to reach the retina. It can be corrected by replacing the lens with a synthetic lens. What are the causes of blindness? Answer: blindness may be caused due to damage to the lens or cornea or complete eye. How do visually impaired people communicate? Answer: visually impaired people can communicate by following methods. By using the Braille system, which employs groups of dots to represent printed letters and numbers. In 1980, Braille computer software was developed. It can input, output, and translate documents to and from Braille. By speech technology that can convert ordinary text into speech. How is Braille system used? Answer: every character in the Braille code is based on the arrangement of 1 to 6 raised dots. Each dot has a numbered position in the Braille cell. These characters make up the letters of an alphabet. Punctuation marks, numbers, and everything else that can be printed does not have a separate alphabet of capital letters as there is in a print. Explain how a screen reader can help visually impaired people. Answer: a screen reader is a software program that provides access to computer software applications and the internet by using a speech synthesizer to read the information on the monitor loudly. For how long does the image remain on retina? Answer: the impression of an image is retained on the retina for about 1/16th of a second. How are we able to see a moving picture? Answer: if still images are projected on the retina at the rate more than 16 pictures per second, then the eye will see the picture as moving. How can you compare human eye with a photographic camera? Answer: human eye has real inverted image on retina. The image cannot be stored as a photograph. The focal length of convex lens can be adjusted by ciliary muscles. Eyes uses line cell to detect light. In photographic camera, real inverted image is formed on a film. The image can be stored as a photograph. The focal length of the lens cannot be adjusted. Camera uses diaphragm to detect light and capture image. Give four properties of the image of an object formed by a plane mirror. Answer: the properties of the image formed by a plane mirror. The image is formed as far behind the mirror as the object is in front of it. The image formed is virtual image. The image formed is an erect image and of same size of the object. The image formed is laterally inverted with respect to the object. What is myopia? Answer: when a person can see nearby object clearly but not far objects, he is suffering from myopia. How is it caused? It is caused by flattening of the eyeball and the lens becomes thick and rigid. How can it be corrected? It can be corrected by using spectacles with concave lenses. Question: what is hypermetropia? Answer: a person suffering from hypermetropia can clearly see distant objects but finds difficulty in reading, writing, and viewing different objects. How it is caused? It is caused by the elongation of the eyeball and the lens becomes flat. How can it be corrected? It can be corrected by using the convex lens. Which of the following should be preferred to read very small letters printed on the pages of a dictionary? Answer: a convex lens of focal length 5 cm. A pond of water appears shallow because of refraction. The phenomenon of the splitting of white light into 7 colors is called as dispersion. In air, all colors propagate with nearly same speed. The phenomenon of dispersion is not visible in a glass slab. In the refractive index is more than optical density. If the refractive index is more than the optical density, on refraction through a parallel faced glass slab, the emergent ray is parallel to incident ray and displaced with respect to the incident ray. When a ray of light propagating in straight line in one transparent medium to enter another transparent medium, its speed in second medium depends upon relative refractive index for a given pair. If lower half of a convex lens is painted black, then image is formed but is of reduced intensity. The change in focal length of an eye lens to focus the image of object at varying distances is done by the action of ciliary muscles. The human eye can focus objects at different distances by adjusting the focal length of the eye lens. This ability of the eye is known as power of accommodation. The least distance of distinct vision for a young adult with normal vision is 25 centimeters. The Braille system for visually challenged person is a tactile aid. The eye lens is convex. The eye problems happen due to lack of vitamin A. The blind spot of the eye is at the junction of optic nerve and retina. The light sensitive cells having shape of cones respond mainly to colors of incident light.